first day of SOFTECAsia 2024 panel discussion. And please welcome once again, ladies and gentlemen, on the stage, Mr. Tariq King, Mr. Kelvin Harris, Mr. Lalit Kumar, and Yang Mulia Raja Azrina to the stage for the panel discussion. And not forgetting too, Mr. Rob Severin, the moderator. Yep.
How's the audio? We doing okay? Are we doing okay? Where's the energy in this room? What is happening here? Didn't you just go through all those interesting and wonderful talks and learn all about all sorts of cool things today? I mean, I walked out with a list of acronyms I've never heard before in my life. I am excited, you know. I'm getting new things to do, new ways to try things. I want to just take this stuff and do something with it. But when you're at a conference like this, you all have individual, personal, and intimate learning objectives. And this is the beautiful part of the day where you get to ask us, the panelists, you get to ask us questions to hopefully cover the gaps from your learning today, close doors that might be open, engage us in questions. We are encouraging you to ask questions generally to the panel, not specifically to someone. And when a question comes in, we're going to sort of rotate who gets to talk first, second, third, and fourth. But we want everybody to get a chance to weigh in on it. If speakers have relevant experience to share, I'm encouraging them to share it. But otherwise, I say let's run with it. So if you all know how to enter questions, you all know the technical things about that. So can we have our questions? Somewhere, technically, there's a question. Aha! All right, so the question the first. Based on my experience, I've had coworkers telling me anyone could test. Testing is not as technical as software development. There's two parts to this. One is what's the veracity of that statement? But the second one is how can we change the perception? And maybe the buried third one is how would you respond to this? I think this is an excellent starting point for today. And I would like to start with Lalit's opinion on the matter. Go ahead, sir.
I have a full slide dedicated. I have a typically full slide dedicated to this question in my workshops. It's very important questions and very relevant one. From my personal experience, the perception of you as a tester in your team, particularly how your development colleagues perceive you, changes a lot. Some of the quick tips I would give to testers for changing the perception is start speaking their language. If you want developers to support you, you need to also be able to contribute to some development efforts. I personally did that by taking ownership for the deployments myself, and that's how I showed that I'm not just a tester, but I'm part of development process. I started taking ownership of defect fixes, starting with easy to fix defects, the common defects, and that also helped me gain the respect of my programmers that this tester is not just a script checker, but he's contributing on technical tasks. So among other things, I would let my colleagues add more to that. But simple thing, start taking ownership on the development side and build the respect for yourself as a tester beyond just script checker.
Raja, what about your opinion?
So I guess my perspective will be coming from the security testing. Not everybody can do security tests, right? I think the topic I covered just now just emphasized the fact that testing is not for the faint-hearted. It's not for everybody, perhaps, but it requires that knowledge, and there are specific guidelines on how to do that for specifically security testing, right? So yeah, I mean, this is something that needs to be acquired. And I think we had a conversation just now as well on how other organizations are incorporating this practice. It can begin with a person and embedding a framework to the rest of the team with regard to security practice. Yeah.
Kevin, what's your cut?
Mine's different. I'm not certain why we worry about whether people think we're technical or not. For me, it's what value we're actually adding to the team, and that's bringing in different attributes to the developers. I'm not there in a team. If there's something in the team that needs developing, I know that I am the worst person in that team to do the development on it. So I won't put myself in that position. There are aspects of the work that comes into the team that I am the best person to do. And those are the aspects that I concentrate on. Those are the bits where I can show that I add value. It doesn't have to be technical. If you are technical, that's good. You can go through that. But for me, it's where the value is. And for me, it isn't in the technical side. I don't think that's something I've ever got hung up on. I don't see myself as a technical member of the team, but I do see myself as adding a lot of value to the team, but not on the technical side.
Tarek?
Yeah, so it's interesting, right? Because we normally battle with this idea of technical. I think to answer this question, you have to understand that there's a lot packed within some of the assumptions that are made. The first thing is that when we start hearing about testers as not being technical, the term technical is generally being applied to the ability to write code. Where that has stemmed from was that, and you start thinking about how testing profession has evolved, and where we have a lot of people who are testers, and they're kind of viewed as, oh, you're a manual tester, and therefore that means that you're someone who knows how to exercise the software externally, but you don't know about the implementation. So that's where the root of that really stems from, and it's actually quite problematic, because I remember in the early days when I was trying to bring more, what you would call, I don't term it this way, more technical content into events like this. I wanted to have a unit testing workshop. I said, hey, I don't see any of this stuff on the agenda. Could we bring it? And at that time, the program chair of that particular conference told me that they didn't think that it would fly, that it wouldn't come across, no one would sign up. Anyway, that person still gave me a shot, and I had 30 people in the first workshop. So I think if we're going to battle this perception of not being technical, the first thing is to understand, number one, technical is not just about coding. There's a lot of software testing that is well rooted in formal and informal testing techniques, formal being rooted in mathematics, and it is actually very, very technical. When you start talking about equivalence classing and pairwise testing and combinatorics, these things are not something that someone who doesn't have the aptitude for understanding how algorithms and steps work will be able to gather. And sorry to be so long, but the last part of this is that there is a big perception that we are also battling because of some of those, I guess, long-rooted aspects of this, where if we want to change that perception, I think what Kevin said is very true. It has to do with the value that you're bringing and being able to articulate the value. It is very easy to develop and build something. It is a lot harder because it's usually more neglected to figure out where it might not have been built correctly. So that's my 2 cents on that, or
All
20
right.
cents.
And just one little point. Walt Disney made a movie about this subject. It's called Ratatouille. Has anyone ever seen the cartoon classic from Disney, Ratatouille? In it, they have this thing about anybody can cook. Anybody can be a master chef. But the truth of it, it's not that anybody can be a master chef, is that a master chef can come from anywhere. It's not that anyone can test, but great testers can come from many different walks of life. So there's a lot more to this issue than just a skill issue. And implicitly also, frankly, I have seen some of the worst testing in my life done by some of the best programmers in my life. Weak, shallow, terrifyingly unhelpful testing by people who are superstar programmers. There's test skills that are different from programming skills. It's part of the game. Anyway, thanks everybody. How was that for the spread on the panel? Are we doing good? Give us some encouragement. Yay, you go team, hey, all right. All right. I love this next question. It's like, and the font is perfect. Thank you, font people. We got a font department there. It's great. How can we know if we're ready to take up lead QA or QA management roles. There was like a talk about this today. I don't know where it fit in somewhere. I had a note about that. Kevin, can you help us with this one?
Yeah. Why would you think you're ready? I guess the first thing is, if you're thinking about it, then that's probably the first step. If you're thinking about that next role, then that means you're at least on the way there. The kind of a half answer is if you're starting to do those aspects of the role without being asked. That's also part of it. And actually, that's a really good way of kind of getting you to that stage. If you're stepping up and taking up some of those responsibilities that a QA manager would actually be doing, then A, you're showing that you're a person who can do that, but also you're starting to show you're ready. So I would say that would be my answer. Start actually looking to take up some of those smaller aspects of the fuller lead or manager role.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I would say, so I was, this is kind of more of a personal experience. I remember I had been a test architect for about 3 or so years. And there was a point where I started to feel very comfortable. I was like, this is great. I get to engage in hard testing problems and help teams and even train people on testing techniques. And I started to realize that I started to feel like I was plateauing, that I got comfortable, and that was good at first because I didn't want people to report to me. I didn't want the stress of being a manager. But I felt like I also still had some level of authority. And at some point I realized like I wasn't growing. And that's when I knew that it was a trigger for me. Number one, that I was personally ready to let go of being as hands-on as I had been before, because I felt like I had mastered to a large degree all that I was doing. So there's one thing about your own internal motivation. I would say the second part is, in knowing that you're ready, is how competent are you? Are you ready in the sense that if you were to get this responsibility, you would be a good manager, whatever good means, and you have to figure all that out. But when you start to see those two things converge, I think you will know that it's time for you to move on to something in that space if you so desire.
Raja, can I have your position or ideas on it?
I don't think I'm the right person to answer this. I've never been in that position. But taking any leadership role, the way I see it, management role, to me, it's not just about competence. It's not just about your ability to deliver technical details, but it's also communication. And I feel that to take up that role, you need to ensure, for example, what goes in the report, right? So what gets communicated in the report is important, okay? And to me, when I look at a report that's poorly done, I then look at the manager. Like, you signed on it? Really? Did you really sign on this, right? So we want to make sure that that ability, that soft skill, and the ability to see the big picture, it's there and communicated across. Yeah.
All right, Lily, what about your experience in this?
Well, a lead QA or QA manager role, it really depends on the culture of your organization and what these roles are supposed to fulfill in terms of responsibility. And it changes from organization to organization. However, a general recommendation I would have is to understand if you have become that project trusted advisor. Are people in your team, programmers, POs, consulting with you for testing related problems? Are they taking your suggestions? That's generally a good sign to know that people trust you. They come to you for testing related consultation. Are testers in other teams are coming to you for specific problems? Have you established a name for yourself as a subject matter expert, be it in security testing, be it in performance or generalization, or as a test generalist? So if you want to know if you are ready, I believe you will start feeling that in the way people perceive you. If you are a project trusted advisor, if you are a go-to person for people for solving testing related problems, I would consider that as a first step to think of promoting yourself and take further actions.
All right.
One second, Rob. I just want to say, this is kind of queued up from you there. One of the things, don't take a lead QA role or a QA manager role if you don't really care about the growth of people. It's important to understand that, like, it's not just about a title. It's not just about more money. I mean, Kevin had a good list of reasons not to do it. One of the best reasons to do it, from my perspective, is that you do care about people in the organization and their growth, and you're ready to focus on making other people and enabling them to be better, right? So,
I actually wrote a children's book on the subject a long time ago. But one of the quotes from it relates exactly to what you're saying. Software testing and software test management is all about people and the occasional bug. It's not the technical side of the chain, it's the people side of the chain. Beautiful stuff, well done. So we went through question 2, is that okay? How's the balance? Better than question 1, worse than question? We're gonna vote on this here, because we get paid based on the applause. So, you don't believe me. Okay, so question 3. Test automation is often used for regression and end-to-end regression testing. What else can we do beyond this? So I guess what else in terms of test automation can we do beyond this? And I was hoping to start, I suppose, and I know it's like you're very specialized in testing, Raja, but I thought maybe you'd talk about how that might fit into your domain.
To give a pass for this.
Okay, that's fine. That's fine. So we'll pass on that, and we'll move to Lalit. Do you want to take it a shot?
So beyond regression and end-to-end testing, I believe, particularly if you understand the automation pyramid or different application layers, there is a lot to automate on unit layer, on API layer, on integration layer, as well as on interaction layer. I recently learned about interaction testing automation when I implemented Storybook in one of my projects. So the possibility of automating are a lot if you understand what your application is built of. And among other things, I would consider automating repeating tasks, be it about generating test data, be it about writing some rake tasks to get certain things done that will make my job faster. So automation doesn't necessarily have to be only about writing some assertions, but anything you can write scripts for to automate the repetitive mundane task, you can consider automation opportunities for that.
Tarek?
yeah, so this again, I think, is a question that reveals a lot that has gone on in our discipline. Traditionally, when we talk about automation, it has been thinking about taking some of the very valuable work that has been done to start testing and designing tests, and then translating them into a scripting language, still all manual, nothing automated yet, and then automatically executing that script on an application. And then if the script happens to fail or pass, still a manual effort to analyze the results. So when someone asks, well, what more is there to do beyond regression? I would answer a whole lot more, because we have taken a very narrow view of what it takes to automate the testing process. And on automating the testing process for me means automating all of the different parts, automating a lot of the work that's done to actually understand the requirements, actually to figure out how the application is behaving, what was the intent of the designer, and then actually going into that process of how to come up with tests that would be valuable to execute on this application. You know, a lot of the things that I think are left as open testing problems, and if I think of the closest thing to it, it would be the idea of model-based testing has always been, let's construct this model and then automatically manipulate this model to generate tests and then execute tests and to gauge test coverage. That has been the closest thing to thinking outside of the box about automation and beyond this idea of regression. As I think Rod mentioned, not every test has to be a regression test, right? Actually, some of the more valuable tests are not regression tests, and there's more than one way to even do regression testing. It doesn't mean writing the same exact test case again. You are looking at behaviors, and yes, there might be some behaviors you want to check again, but it doesn't require the very specific encoded script that we have kind of made it out to be. So hopefully that helps.
Kevin, you want to put your spin on it?
Yep, I think I agree with all the comments so far. I will add one extra thing that I managed to do. It should be about automating anything that is something you're doing day in, day out. When I was in the banking company, which we don't talk about, one of the things when I joined was one of the teams was spending about 6 hours a week on test reports. So basically I automated it. I made it a dashboard, and we went from 6 hours a week to 10 minutes a week. You can automate anything that's repetitive. You should be looking at how you actually can make it faster, get rid of those manual stuff that actually is just a repetition of what you did last week. So I think don't just look at test automation as automating the testing. Look at it as every single aspect of the work that we do as testers.
Yeah, there's a large bias on the universe of software testing that suggests that automation and regression are conceptually equivalent. That's not true. Regression is about building confidence that you didn't accidentally inject a behavior change that unintentionally in a piece of software. It's important, it's critical, it's perhaps fundamental for some projects, but I think we can use automation all over the place as tools whenever we want. And think of the mayhem and the consequence of treating everything like a regression test. Regression tests need a lot of maintenance. They need a lot of babysitting. They have to control the state of the system and put it back to the right state at the beginning and the end. It is hard to write resilient regression tests, but you can write a script in a few minutes that'll do 50,000 transactions, do the transaction, study the result, and throw the script in the frickin' garbage. All testing that's automated doesn't have to be regression. You can learn a lot with just enough automation at the right time. Treat it as a tool, leverage. I rant about this all the time. Sorry about the rant. It's important. And good questions, good answers. We're okay here? We're doing okay? You didn't like that one, eh? You all want me to say regression is good. Yay, regression. Let's
I
all
would
do
just
regression.
like to add something on that, if I may.
Yep, go ahead.
So typically people tend to fall for automate everything madness, and I think it's good to have a motivation for wanting to automate more, but it's essentially also important to know what not to automate, or at least find out when to automate what. Try to find out what quality criteria matters to you and identify the opportunities for automation. For example, in Europe, we are automating a lot of accessibility tests now because it's a rule that people have to follow. There are lots of possibilities you can automate with interaction testing, for example. So identify what matters more in your context and then try to think of automation instead of automating everything blindly.
If I can add to that then. Right. Yeah.
Good.
So in security, there are tests that can be automated. However, penetration testing is one that not recommended to be automated. Okay. So there's a whole lot of other tools that you can use for automation. Yeah, Fortify, Black Duck, Nessus, all these are tools that will automate the test. But when it comes to penetration testing, it's best to be done manually. Even though there are tools out there who claim that they can automate pen tests, but really the best way of doing it is manual. Yeah.
Does anyone else want to add to that, since the subject is slightly different, is what not to test automatically? No? All right. So cool. Excellent. Question the next. This is the fourth question. I love the form and the structure of this. It's marked anonymous, but thank you for whoever structured this question. It's really nicely done. Was it you? You're my hero, whoever did that. This is an agile testing roadmap. It's tough to get justification on business value to include automation framework, low-level scripts, restructuring and redesign. Any advice, any guidance. Basically, getting justification on the business value. How do you convince your product owner or your stakeholders to justify the cost of this? That's the drift I get on that. To start, let's pick arbitrarily Tarek is the first one here.
Yeah, so, I mean, first of all, I think understanding who is the decision maker that you need to convince is very important. Once you recognize that, because sometimes I think we get caught up with, okay, this is the product owner who will make this final decision, right? Or, you know, I have to convince my business analysts. Sometimes it's neither of those people. It's actually above that chain. And the best way to kind of get justification on a business case is to show the ROI of something, right? Because who doesn't want to hear about how we can save money? And whether your product owner may be like, yeah, you know what, I don't think we should do that testing. If you bring to any senior leader, VP, C-level, a report that shows like, hey, this is how much leak defects are costing us. And if we did X, Y, or Z, we would save X amount of millions of dollars, right? It doesn't matter what your product owner thinks at that point. And it's a kind of a weird way of going over someone's head, but it is actually a very effective way. Since I've become a consultant, this is usually the biggest thing that I've had to just produce on a regular basis, because number one, clients can see that this is a very low risk way to engage in this effort because it pays for itself, right? So I would say try to figure out where the inefficiencies are for what you're trying to justify, quantify it, measure it, put it all together, and present it, and put it in dollars. There's a very conservative model you can use for leak defects, right? And if you look at how much you're spending on automation, how much time it might be in terms of the investment, you can actually show very clearly where this return on investment starts to pay off.
All right, Kevin?
I'm not sure I've got a lot to add to that, really. It was pretty comprehensive. But just agree, it is about getting the data out. A lot of organisations I've worked with are very poor at actually having the data behind what they do. So actually understanding how much time they are spending on these bits of the process, how much time is spent having to fix bugs or maintain the framework. So that's the kind of data you need to be getting out. A lot of companies are really poor at it. So you should be looking at the data behind the decisions and just making sure you're kind of tracking it and increasing it and using that as the reason for your change.
Raja, any comments on that?
Right. I think you can use the slide that I shared just now. The embedding of DevSecOps into the application development saved 1.6 million to an organization. That statistics was based on a study. So I believe that you can use these kind of references to show the value of investment in having the right tool and automation embedded into the software development, and testing.
Willie?
A lot has been already covered by my colleagues, but my recommendation would be, particularly in case of difficult to convince stakeholders, I take examples from the production, pick any production defect, analyze it, and build a case around how you could have found it should you have had some kind of testing or automation done at lower application layer. And if you can help them understand the value of finding that problem earlier versus having to face that problem in production, having to do the patchwork, you are going to help them understand the importance of investing in your idea. So just pick something that you find catastrophical and help them understand how your idea could have helped finding it earlier through automation or early testing, and let the data speak for itself.
On my front, I have actually got very limited experience in this field, but I've got a lot of experience in estimation and making persuasive arguments for a budget. And it's never been a cost benefit of the way that some people like to look at it. It's always been just this is the right way to get things done, especially if you have a history of regression risks that kick in that you want to start eliminating, people have a very good sense on the cost of fixing bugs after a piece of product has been deployed. I did a lot of work in embedded software. It's really expensive to do that. The only really detailed treatment of it that I've seen in print is part of Rex Black's book, The Critical Testing Process, where he actually goes into how to make these ROI arguments. Now, not everybody may want to follow his testing models, but he does go through a lot of stuff of how to convince management to support the use of automation, and some of the styles of arguments have to do with KPIs, key process indicators, and other management vectors. That said, he also says the best way is to get a seat at the table, to be part of the business decisions of the whole project. Don't look at automation as a little thing. Look at it as a part of the expenses of a larger whole. And I'm not trying to say wash the budget, but it's how you can influence the spending. So that's the question. A good one? Nice question? Good question? Yay. You're getting tired of clapping, I know. That won't bother you. Next question seems to have changed priorities a bit here, so we have a competition between questions here. But this one is to set up AI testing framework for my organization, which is a bank. What's the first step? So AI testing framework, what's the first step? Anyone want to jump on that? I have no idea who's the best person to start. Is Terry?
Yeah, sure. Well, especially with the bank in there, the first hurdle that everyone is trying to get through is figuring out how do we actually get enterprise-ready AI enabled within our organization. And by that I mean that one of the key challenges here with AI has always been security, privacy, and so thinking of navigating through the AI world, you want to make sure that you're not using a model and sending your private data to OpenAI or to anyone who's going to be able to use it, right? So that's usually the first hurdle that people need to navigate through is understanding that there's instances that can be private for your LLMs if you're using like an Azure deployment of their OpenAI setup, or if you're using something from Google, or even some of the other more open source LLMs that you can bring in-house and train your own model or fine-tune your own model. So navigating that first security kind of tidbit and getting the approval, especially if it's the banking, is going to be your first thing because you're dealing with a lot of sensitive data and a highly regulated environment.
Kevin, you have something to chuck in this?
I guess my first question would be, why do you want an AI testing framework? What's it actually giving to your testing? And I think until I understood that, I wouldn't answer any more questions. I'd want to know why first. What are the requirements for it? What's it actually doing? What's it giving you? So that would be how I'd start that. I'm not sure where I'd go after that.
Roger, anything on that?
Yeah, on that note, my suggestion would be one of the first approach is to get on board AI trust alliances. There are a few initiatives in there that they are at this early stage of coming up with guidelines and best practices and even up to the level of standards for building trusted AI. And that is not just for security, but also safety, yeah, not just for data protection, but also security. So these are some of the initiatives out there. Secondly, I've also met some people from academics. These are universities, the Ivy Leagues in UK, that are doing. They are developing some solutions that claim to be able to conduct rate teaming of the AI, right? So I foresee that's more towards something like doing a test, conducting tests. Rate team in our language, in security language, means you're testing yeah, the security of the solution. Thirdly, ourselves, we are also testing AI, and we do it for the objective. As Kevin asked, what's the objective of doing this AI test? On our case, the test is for data protection. So testing AI for the purpose of determining if there are exposures, data exposure. So that's where the data fencing comes into play, in which every LLM, for example, they need to be configured in such a way that the sensitive data are not exposed. Yeah.
Lily?
If I were to do it, I would first start with identifying the problems that I would like to solve with AI. It's not necessary that we have to do AI because our neighbors are doing, our CEO is asking, and our competitors are doing it too. So try to identify what is it that you want to solve through the AI solution. And once you identify, try to find out if there is anything you can already take from your competitors, for example, instead of having to reinvent the wheel. So I would focus a lot more on researching in the beginning and identifying the need and doing a POC. If it works, then it makes more sense to invest in establishing a full-fledged framework. But start small, think critically, and then decide the next steps.
Yeah, I actually follow most of that wisdom. I have very little experience, but I know that any testing practice, I want to know the purpose. Why am I doing this? What's the purpose? And then what problem am I trying to solve? And then baby steps. Don't throw all your eggs in one basket. There are many, many, many vendor claims. Quite frankly, every Wednesday, I have a conference call for about 45 minutes to an hour with people who are working on AI test automation tools. And the developers are fighting, the testers and developers are fighting the vendor claims. Like, this is a vendor claim war, and it's driven apparently by the request and the demand of enterprise software. So if you work in what's called enterprise software, you can influence the evolution of development of the AI tools. And they're promoting this as an add-on to existing stuff usually. They want to get you into AI by taking your existing test suite and basically using AI to find gaps in it, or AI to generate your data, or AI to learn from what you've done already to improve things. It's a strange new world out there. So I don't think there's too many first steps known really yet. And if you're doing it, please publish. Please share what you're doing. I would love to read about it in tea time. There you go.
Tea time with testers.
There you go. All right, so nice, gentle applause. We're tired. We're getting hungry. Is it possible to get hungry at this conference? That's an open question. All right, next one. How, and this has got a lot of votes, this one. How can we ensure that automation testing career, where did it go? You changed the priority while I was reading the question. No, they're not allowed to do that. I started asking the question, how could the priority change? So that they voted for the other one now. Okay, that's higher. Okay, we're better. How can we ensure that automation testing career is still relevant when AI and machine learning have started taking over? That violated the principle of Scrum, I know that here. How can we ensure that automation testing career is relevant when AI and machine learning have started to take over? Right, so I guess it's time to hear Kevin first. Do you have something on that?
Yeah. I'd say that automation testing as it is now won't be automation testing the same in 5 years' time. I think I look at how long I've been testing. Testing has changed continuously over those 25 years. The way that we tested 25 years ago, you'd be laughed at if you did it now. And I think automation testing will go the same way. It will definitely change. You'll change the value that automation testing, it won't be so much. We talk about low code, no code automation testing, and AI is going to be helping with that. It won't be able to replace what automation testing does, but it will help with that and help with the chore of it. So you will still need the intelligence, you will still need to know what you're actually testing, but it will definitely change. So if you want to stay exactly doing what you're doing right now, good luck. I'm not sure you're still going to be working in testing in 5 years' time. It's going to change. You just need to keep up to date and change with it.
Ali?
I see a lot of opportunity to make automation more accessible and spread it further with traditionally non-technical testers disciplines, I would say. For example, I agree that automation as of today and maybe also in next 5 years will be less techno-savvy. The maintenance work that used to be difficult in past would be very, very easier. But then you can get more creative with your experience in automation and try to create more solutions. For example, we recently sold whole automation concept to our business people, and the time they were taking for UAT for around 1.5 months, they started doing it in 2 weeks. So we just involve more people and we help them take benefit of easy automation to make everybody's life easier. So use your automation skills, the understanding you have developed to solve different kind of problems. I think your skills are still relevant. You just need to find different ways of implementing those further beyond maintaining automation.
Raja?
There's a saying that goes that if with the AI, AI does not make you irrelevant in any field really, but those who are in the field and not embracing AI or not knowing how to fit AI in their role or function will be irrelevant, if that makes sense. Okay, so meaning that moving forward, we need to be embracing the toolings. It will, the way I see it, in security at least, there's no way that human can be replaced overnight, but it will make us more, I would say, productive, and we will have more insightful findings, yeah, with the advancement of these technologies.
Tarek?
All right. All right. It's not 5 years. It's 1 or 2 years. And you know, if you are in banking and you're a bank teller, and you're a bank teller who can only dispense money, then when the ATM is being built, then you should worry about your job. And you should not let it to get to that point. You should be thinking, well, how can I be more of a client-facing banker and help with loans and help with the soft side of banking? But if you continue to stick just dispensing money, then the machine that can dispense money will replace you. There's no difference here. If you're an automation engineer who is literally just taking artifacts and translating them to be used by a framework, and most of your day-to-day is something that generative AI, you can now see that it is able to do, don't try to give it 5 years. Trust me, within a year, the technology will be so much better. It's already moving at such a fast pace that if you don't kind of change and adapt and understand that you can also use AI to help enhance whatever your role is and to do more or do more faster, then you will be definitely left behind in this career. So I would advise, yes, there's a lot of comments on embracing AI and so on and so forth. But I would also say this, for a long time people have been underestimating what AI can do. And a lot of the times for ourselves, I think the term AI replace us gets into our brains mentally. But AI is not replacing us, it is not. I agree with that. But AI can replace several functions that we have been doing and that have been there. Calculators have changed the way that we do math, right? The internet has changed our perception on how we get knowledge and how we share knowledge and disseminate knowledge. And AI is going to change how we do a lot of things because it's even more general technology. So back in the day, I would have been telling you 5 years, but 4 years have passed. And so I would say be vigilant over the next year or so. If you're in, I already talked about my rant on how automation is already narrowly scoped in the testing space. So Automation as we know it today, that will definitely change. If you want to remain relevant in automation as an engineer, then understand that your scope of what needs to be automated needs to expand as well.
Just to throw a little bit in to complement everything that people are saying, if you want to succeed in testing as part of software engineering and product development, you want to be in the change business. Things will change. People have been afraid of technological change, changing the workforce for years. I've got volumes of books written in the 1950s, scared of computer technologies taking away all the jobs and taking away everything. So right now, if you're locking into a skill set that ties to a specific tool or a specific vendor, well, maybe step back, watch the fundamentals, and learn to love to learn. Enjoy it. That's your job. That's what life is. Whether you're managing, doing, acting, buying, selling, testing involves dealing with change. And we are the leading edge of that change because we're mucking with it before the consumers get it. We are that thin veil of protection between the consumers and the producers of the software. And that means that we are in the leading edge of change, not the lagging edge of change. So that's my 2 bits on that. I don't want to pick on the term automation or AI in particular, because who knows what the buzzword is going to be 3 years from now. You know, maybe it's going to be rocket ship testing in zero gravity is going to be the big thing.
That deserves a big round
Zero
of
G testing.
Big round of applause for Rob's.
there you go. I love the initiative here. The panel's going to take over. I'm not going to be given a job anymore. I lost it. Some AI bot is running the panel now. Good God. Well, no, you're not the avatar. You're the real Tarek.
Who knows?
Who knows? All right, so question with 12 points. As a test manager, how do you motivate your team when there are limited career advancement opportunities within the company? Now, that's probably applies to much more than just testing. So as a test manager, how do you motivate your team when there are limited career advancement opportunities in the company? I'll throw that one at Kevin to start with.
Thanks. It's interesting, but it's not insurmountable. You want to be giving people opportunities. It's not necessarily, here's a new career, here's a new step up, but here's something new you can do. Here's something that will look good on your CV. Here's something that I can delegate to you. So you can do those aspects of it. You can help them become a better tester, more well-rounded, have more opportunities within the sphere of testing. You can perhaps point them down other ways like security testing, performance testing, but you can certainly delegate bits of your work, get those people to be able to do that, take over some of the aspects of your job. So maybe it isn't a question of the career opportunities within that company, it's giving them that toolbox so they'll be able to do it, and possibly they'll need to do it somewhere else, but at least get them in the position so they can do that. And it could be, of course, to get in the position so that you can leave, because maybe there's opportunities for you somewhere else. So give them opportunities. It's not a question of keeping them where they are because you don't want them to move. You want them to be doing their job better. You want them to be motivated. So give them opportunities. And if that means giving them stuff that you do, do that.
Tarek, do you have anything on motivating people?
Yeah, sure. So I would say, first of all, help people to make a distinction between their job and their career. There might be limited job opportunities, limited opportunities in that particular organization or sub-organization to move up at the moment, right? But your career is bigger than your job. I tell people this all the time. Every single employer that I have worked for knows that my career is bigger than my job, which means that I will continue investing in my career even if my job seems like it's not going anywhere, right? It's one of the reasons that I got into public speaking, and I have encouraged others to do so, but there's many, many ways for you to branch out. And I would say even within an organization, as a manager, your job is to help with their growth, right? As I mentioned before. And sometimes that help results in them growing out of your organization. Not necessarily out of your company, but that could also happen, but out of your organization, which means that if there's someone that can develop and they're developing and they have these skills and you're pouring into them and they're growing, sometimes the right thing is to enable an opportunity for them to go on to a different team. A lot of the time, as managers, we want to hold on to our resources, keep them because they're good people. This is not the mentality that you should have. Your end goal is what is best for that employee, what is best for that person. And sometimes what is best for them is for them to grow and go, right? And again, sometimes that may even be out of the company that you're in, right? I've seen that happen before as well. But I think you keep them motivated by continuing to pour into them and let them know that it is also a matter of waiting on the right opportunity to open up, and they need to be ready, because you can be very talented, you can be prepared, and then you need the opportunity, right? And the opportunity will eventually come. If you're ready and prepared for it, you'll be the first person in line.
Lily?
I think one thing testers needs to understand that their testing role or the profession itself is so multifaceted, multi-talented role. And if you're a good tester, you can typically take about any role you want to grow in. James Bach had written one interesting article about 7 types of testers, like analytical tester, curious tester, system thinker, this and that. So if you know what you are good at, you can easily develop that particular skill further and turn this into next career opportunity for yourself. I have worked with so many excellent testers. Some of them have now become great engineering managers. Some of them have become product owners. A couple of them have become very popular agile coach. I have become leadership consultant. So do not think that your career growth as a tester has to be only in testing field. Understand your niche skills, what makes you an excellent tester, and try to develop that into finding more career opportunities and developing yourself further.
Raja?
Well, my take on this would be in your test journey, testing manager or testing career, my view is that they can actually grow into security testing. And growing as a tester and growing into security testing, to me, it's a natural path. And there are modules, competence development that they can go for and develop the skill. And to me, people will stay. There are 2 things that I often tell my personnel. One, people join the organization for the money. Yeah, why you make that leap into the organization? Often because of that additional offer. But people stay in the organization. Why? Because they grow. They see that they can grow. Now, if we see that there are obstacles or there's no opportunity for growth, then diversify. Okay, and security testing is one of the area, a sub area, that to me will always enrich them and make them very relevant, even in their career moving forward.
I just have one little comment to add to that motivation, and I believe I agree with all this stuff, so there's not much controversy at this table about motivating people, help them advance in their career. But one of the best ways to do that is to take them to a conference like this right now and enjoy learning and growing and building a community of practice. Amen. You set me up for that, guys. It's good. Are there any more questions? Yeah, there's some here. This one is in a very big font. It's a Helvetica style font. In case you want the commentary on the fonts. The J's are missing from it, though, but the G's look pretty good. What's your view on testing in production? Quality assurance spelt wrong on purpose, right? With QUAB, quabity. So anyone want to take a cut to start the discussion of testing in production?
Yeah, sure. I can start. So I think for a long time, again, in the testing space, there's been a lot of fear around testing in production. And just hearing the term was like, what do you mean testing in production? The risk is too big. I remember having a conversation with a very prominent tester. We had both talks on testing, and he said, like, testing in production is too risky. And I looked at him and I said, not testing in production is also too risky. Because at the end of the day, we all know that bugs are going to escape. Bugs are going to leak into production. And they're going to be there. Customers and clients have the potential to find them. And so by not continuing to explore in production-like environments or in production itself, we do have an element of risk. Now, just because you're testing in production also doesn't mean that you have to be reckless about testing in production. There's a lot of mechanisms these days where you can safely, in quotation marks, I guess, test in production, and understanding what those techniques are and how you can leverage them is very important. Last but not least, the last thing that I have to say, otherwise I might get fired as the CEO of TestIO, is that another form of testing in production is looking at the crowdsourced model. And we are very good in testing at looking at the testing pyramid and forgetting the very tippity top of the pyramid, which is that end-to-end testing or end-user testing. We love to talk about the rest of the stack, but the fact of the matter is that real feedback from real users who are operating in a real environment, right, is the best feedback you can get on testing, because at the end of the day, one of the big values of testing is giving you that real feedback and that real insight. And everything that we do in between that is a simulation of what is really going to be in the real world, and is a deviation, potential deviation from that real world experience. And so let's not underestimate the value of testing in production.
Lily, do you have something on that?
I love testing in production. And I remember some of the incidents where the only way to test those scenarios were only to test them in production. I think the real problem is not really about testing in production. It's more about testability. And if your organization, your teams are not investing in making your systems more testable, you will be compelled to test more on the production. So try to think in terms of testability. I'm doing workshop on it tomorrow. If you can control your software systems to be able to replicate the behaviors in production or test those scenarios in lower environments, I think you reduce your dependency to test more on the production. And testing on production, no matter how much I like it for obvious reasons, it's still you're testing at far end of the things, and the problems that you're likely to find there could be very expensive to find that late. So why not to rather think of possibilities of finding those problems earlier by investing in making your system more testable? So if testing in production bothers you, think of in terms of testability and how you can improve that. And then this problem will become number 2 problem. That reminds me of Jerry Weinberg. If you cannot solve number 1 problem, find number 2 problem and make it number 1.
There you go. Reprioritize your list of questions while you're asking them. Raja, go ahead.
Yeah, right. One of the rules in security is that, as I said just now, penetration testing is something that needs to be done manually. And a lot of penetration testing are done on live systems, on production system, right? You don't do so much of penetration testing on developed or staging environment unless it's a brand new application, right? Okay. But having said that, in penetration testing, to some extent, to some degree, we do also fuzzing. Now, fuzzing can cause a whole lot of issue with applications, right? So you need to pick your battles. So we need to assess the risk of running this kind of test on, let's say, legacy systems, on systems that are unable to take up these kind of tests, right? So you need to understand that platform that you're dealing with, and whether this is a suitable test to be conducted in a production, right? So that risk assessment needs to be conducted prior to deciding whether this is feasible or is the right choice to do it on a production system. Yeah.
Kevin.
Yeah, so I guess there's different models on what testing in production actually is. I think if you've got a team of developers who write code and stick it straight on production, and that's the first time you see it and the first time you actually try and test it, that's not a good model. If you've got a model where you're going through all of the environments and you're testing it, and then you get onto production and you're doing an environmental check when it goes live, then that's reasonable. That's a model that works. If you've got a way of decoupling the release from the build, so if you're using something like feature flags and you can actually do it that way, then that means you get the code onto production quicker. So I know a lot of companies are very much in the aspect of as soon as the developer writes the code, it gets onto production, but it's not used on production, and then you can go in and just test it just for that individual rather than test it for all of the users. And also you need to think about, are we talking about monitoring and alerting, which are testing the system on production, but they're not somebody testing on production. So all of those aspects are important, and I think you need the model that fits your company and what you're trying to do.
Tarek, did you want to comment that?
Yeah, just want to add something. This is a very good point that Kevin is making. Testing in production is another tool in the toolbox. Testing in production does not equal insufficient pre-production testing. And understanding that you can use this tool to help make your overall delivery process, your overall quality gates, everything better is important. And in some cases, you actually have no choice because some things you're just not going to find in another way. But again, all of the techniques that he mentioned are allude to ways that you can safely actually go about testing in production. So it doesn't have to be something that we're afraid of. I think it's more of a challenge to us to stop being afraid of it, because quite frankly, we've spent many, many years focused on pre-production testing. That's what most of testing has been about. And we really do need to spend some more time focused on this idea of testing in production or TIP.
Yeah, just to give my 2 cents on this, I'm a huge advocate, always have been, of testing in production. I actually love it. I think it's a beautiful problem space, and I think it's a whole team thing. You got to develop the testability in to make this possible. The case studies that I've got and seen on this are gorgeous, including stuff, and I learned today about this at a presentation by one of our panelists, and it's something that fits right into production testing. I see DAST, dynamic, what is DAST? Dynamic security testing, dynamic application security testing. Dynamic analysis, dynamic testing on the live production system is the gateway of understanding non-functional attributes of a piece of software. It has to be in production. The production is reality. It's the real word. Everything else is a model. And all models, as George Box would say, are wrong, although some of them are useful, right? So thank you. Good question. Love it. Everyone, yay. I know it's 5:23 in the afternoon here, which we have time for a couple more questions if we're reasonably terse. We've been getting terse, but evocative. So, are there, a truth question, are there any career paths other than becoming QA test manager for a QA tester, such as becoming an individual contributor? So now we're talking about career paths for a QA tester. Are there other career paths, or is it just you become a QA manager? So, Lalit, career paths?
I think I already answered that, so I would repeat, there are definitely multiple options for you to think of, because as a tester, you are typically a versatile person. You can use your ability to observe the subtleties of human behavior to become a good agile coach or scrum master in your team. You can use your technical expertise and maybe long relevant experience in automation to maybe take some career option in DevOps area. Try to understand what kind of tester you are, what are your specialties, and develop it further in becoming any other role that you might take in the software project.
Raja.
Yeah, I think I mentioned this too just now, that you can take the path of going into becoming a security tester. Yeah, that's one of the paths that I think would go down well.
Kevin?
I've worked for 2 companies that have given the opportunity to become an SME within test. So a more senior tester who doesn't have line management responsibilities. So I've only had that in 2 out of 9 companies, but it's definitely something that's out there. If you just want to stay in testing, but you want more responsibility that isn't line management. So there are roles out there, but not as many companies do that.
Tarek?
Yeah, so there is a path, and actually, like a lot of the times, a lot of folks will try to tell you that, you know, you have to get into management. At one point in my career, I was an engineering fellow. I had started off as a principal architect and moved my way up to distinguished architect and then engineering fellow, all focused on testing. So it is possible. I was also then told that if I had to choose between one and the other, and I couldn't be a good people leader as well as a good technical leader, and I told them that that's crap, and I don't believe in that. You can certainly find ways to keep your technical skills even as you grow as a people leader, and I think I've proven that over time. And so don't let anyone try to put you in a box, but find the path that really suits you.
Yeah, I started this morning with a talk about my dad. My dad started as a tester in test set maintenance in 1946 and ended his career at Northern Telecom as the director of overseas operation, installing telephone systems in the Middle East, North Africa, and Eastern and Central Europe. Started as a tester in test set maintenance, worked his way through a career path of his making. The opportunities come up. Some of them you don't plan for, but if you have your skills ready and the opportunities, you can find a lot of wonderful career paths. Testers make great advocates of all sorts of things. So that's it. We're going to get a couple more questions in, but yay for that question? Yeah, okay. Well, not as fun as this one. This one I've got to take first. Why haven't we been able to achieve a bug-free application yet? Don't tell me we haven't. The AVT 710 was released. It's a video display terminal product, embedded software, multi-processing system. 9 man-months of development, right? 15,000 units installed and operational over 15 years. 0 field-reported software defects. There was never a field-reported software defect that had to be fixed. When the product was decommissioned, I was given all the original source code and product embodiments as a gift. Yes, it can be done. Don't tell me you cannot do defect-free software, because defects are in the eye of the beholder. Defect-free doesn't mean bug-free. You don't have to fix all the bugs. Fixing a bug, you can make it worse. You've got to make good, sound business decisions. Don't tell me it can't be done. If you want the case study, it was presented at the workshop on performance and reliability testing in the early 2000s. I'm glad to give an electronic copy of the case study so you can walk through how it was done. Massive amount of regression testing, massive amount of automation. Yes, we were fanatics about it, but we had to make our own electromagnetic relay robots and all sorts of cool things to get the thing done. So don't tell me it can't be done. Sorry, end of rant. Anyone else want to rant? Anyone want to follow that, Tarek?
No, I'm going to use my pass, or is there a phone a friend? I'm definitely not going to mess with you after that.
No comments about defect-free software?
Oh, yeah, no comments.
Kevin? I scared them away.
We're all testers. If every application was bug-free, I think we'd all be out of a job. So I'm quite happy to start paying developers to put the bugs in.
All right. Raja? No comment?
No comments.
Lalit? You have to say something. Someone has
Add
to.
some funny stuff. I think it's plausible goal if we get enough time and investment of all sorts to reach there. But there are good enough software quality guys during the party.
There you go. All right. Had fun with that, right? Okay. I think it's 5:29, and unfortunately, although there's a couple more questions in the queue, I believe we're running out of time. Is there an official timekeeper here? You want another question, or should we call it a day? One more. Your enthusiasm and motivation is scary. It's hard to follow. Like, why are you still in this room? It's blowing my mind. Okay, so we'll do another one here. Agile testing mindset. Agile testing mindset. Though the team is aware that testing is not a test-only sole responsibility, it doesn't show in practice. How can we improve this? So how can we improve that, that testing is not just one person's sole responsibility? A comment about the role of testing in Agile teams?
Can I take that one? Because I've actually
Please.
done that before. I've been in Agile teams where, due to holidays and work building up, then the tester has become the bottleneck within the team, and things haven't got through because we're waiting on the tester. So we taught the developers to test. And I would say that's good practice all the time. We took it slowly, they tested, we reviewed what they were doing, we taught them through it, we kind of suggested ways they could improve their testing. They didn't test their own stuff, that was the most important thing. They tested other developers' stuff, but it meant we got rid of the bottleneck. If we were away, we actually got them to a state where we trusted that they could actually test it to a reasonable standard. So it's definitely something you can do, it's definitely something I would advise doing. Actually, I've got it on a slide for tomorrow that says teach your developers to test. So it's definitely something you can do and should be trying to do.
Derek?
All right, so I would say, well, number one, easier said than done sometimes. But the first thing is that understanding that it's not just a mindset, that what you're trying to establish and do is to create a culture of quality in your organization. That requires support from leadership. It requires both a top-down and a bottom-up approach to actually effectively create. So therefore, the individual contributors coming together as a guild and really having an influence and impact on the development process, again, with leadership support, is really how you make that type of a transformation. So bear that in mind. It's not just as simple as, oh yes, the developers or the other people on my team won't understand this or they don't live this. You have to actually be intentional about creating that culture of quality.
Raj, any comments on that one?
No, I do not have an opinion on this. I'll give a pass.
Well, thank you. Lally, go ahead.
Short answer, please come to my morning workshop tomorrow. It's exactly about that. Cultivating a culture of quality using testing education. And if you are bored of me already, then there is a free framework I have created, QCSD. It's about quality conscious software delivery, which essentially talks about how testers and testing education can be utilized to establish a culture of quality. 30-page paper, award-winning paper. Help yourself if you are interested in the topic. I will be happy to share further. Thank you.
All right. I just have one little comment on that, and I'm going to compliment what's been said. But I've never been paid to do good agile development. I've been paid to do good software development. And I will break any agile principle or method or technique necessary to develop high quality software, get the job done. For me, agile is a means to an end. It's useful. There's a lot of practices and principles in there that are great. But this notion of dedicated testing and the whole team working on that, that's a dynamic. It takes time to get that dynamic working. It takes years to teach test skills to programmers, and some of them just don't want to learn it. And it's the same thing of teaching programming skills to testers. These are beautiful skills. So I think that when you're doing tasks in an agile team, be able to take tasks you've got the skills to do and make yourself available for doing tasks other than what would be your traditional role, but don't feel that anybody can test. It takes skills to do it. If you're the only one with the skills, well, you might get some opportunities to maybe do coaching or training. So with that, I think we're done. So thank you, everybody. Thank you, everybody. Is there any closing comments for the conference here or guidance on the timing of this? We just end? It's like a mic drop, you know? There we go. All right.
All right, thank you, Rob, for your great moderation.
Thank you, thank you. Thank you. What awesome, awesome. Thank you.